There is no law and order in India. And I think that the RSS is frightened of the Frankenstein that they have created. And I think they are trying to rein it in. I hope that is a correct reading, that RSS now has a buyer's remorse. Welcome to Khanversations. I'm Muqtedar Khan, your host. If you're watching Khanversations for the first time, then do subscribe to the channel and ring the bell icon for notifications about future videos. I also want to thank all of you who support Khanversations and the media who are carrying Khanversations on their platforms to give it more reach. So thank you to all of you. In the past few days, we have heard some interesting statements from the RSS leadership. The statements directly and indirectly address Indian Muslims, making me wonder if the RSS is seeking a dialogue with Indian Muslims. First, on January 3rd, the RSS supremo Mohan Bhagwat, in a speech, asked the question, why expand the conflict about the Gyanvapi mosque and about the mosques, the alleged mosques which have been built on various temples? Why do we need to search for a shivling under every mosque? This was a statement that he made. That why do we need to expand the conflict? Why do we need to search for a shivling under every mosque? And it triggered a very interesting dialogue in the country. Lots of people on television and in the media started writing and speaking about this issue, asking the question, is Mohan Bhagwat signaling that RSS is going in a different direction? Then, just 2 days ago, Madhav, who has served as the National General Secretary of the BJP and also a member of the National Executive of RSS, sat down on June 8th to talk to Madhav, a senior editor with the print. I suspect his goal was to put into perspective what Mohan Bhagwat had said. So they read all the discussions in the media and then they sent out Madhav to make a few clarifications. I will show you both those statements and then I will unpack them for you. My question therefore today for our conversations is this: is RSS singing a new tune, or is it the same old poison of anti-Muslim politics in a new bottle? On June 3rd, RSS Supremo Mohan Bhagwat made an intriguing statement that attracted much attention and raised hopes that perhaps RSS was moderating its politics. He said, and you can listen to him in this video, he said that today's Muslims are not responsible for what happened in the past. While Hindu views towards the Gyanvapi mosque are well known, there is no need to expand the conflict and search for a shivling under every mosque. Let us watch him first, then we will discuss his message.
एक इतिहास तो है, उसको हम बदल नहीं सकते. वो इतिहास हमने नहीं बनाया, न आज के अपने आप को हिंदू कहलाने वालों ने बनाया, न आज के मुसलमानों ने बनाया. उस समय घटा, ठीक है, प्रतीकात्मक कुछ हमारी विशेष श्रद्धा थी, ऐसे स्थानों के बारे में हमने कहा, लेकिन रोज एक मामला निकालना नया, यह भी नहीं करना चाहिए. हमको झगड़ा क्यों बढ़ाना है? ज्ञानवापी के बारे में हमारी कुछ श्रद्धाएं हैं, परंपरा से चलती आई, हम कर रहे, ठीक है, परंतु हर मस्जिद में शिवलिंग क्यों देखना?
It appears that he's calling for an end to this proliferation of claims all across the country that this mosque and that mosque were built on demolished temples. It also appears that he sees the futility of reversing history, and he wants a few mosques that he says are sacred to Hindus, and then he wants to forget about the rest and he wants to move forward. He says that the Gyanvapi mosque has great sentimental value, and so Muslims should perhaps give it to Hindus, and then we will close this chapter and then we will move forward. Madhav, on the other hand, adds 4 conditions to what Mohan Bhagwat had to say. Let's listen to him and then we will talk.
This whole civilizational ethos is so very, very Catholic in its nature. So it's not about them changing their way of worship. If they prefer to do that, well and good. But otherwise they can continue to pursue their way of worship. But At cultural level, can we accept that we are all one? That we call as Hindu. For a moment, they don't want to call it as Hindu. They want to call it Bharatiya Samskruti. Fair enough, do that. Call it as Bharatiya Samskruti, we don't mind. But that means that you should sever your links with the aggressors. You should give up on that whole concept of Ummah. We are different from national society. We are a nation by ourselves as a religion. Then somebody's kafir, you should give up that idea. Then, we can live together. That is the whole essence of that argument of cultural, ancestral oneness.
He says that Muslims must recognize that they are all Hindus and descendants of Hindus, and must abandon the concepts of jihad, ummah, and kafir. As for the demand that Muslims should think of themselves as Hindus or Bharatiya, this happened already long ago. Indian Muslims have always thought of themselves as Hindustanis. Indian Muslims do not think of themselves as anything else. His problem is that he's thinking of the concept of Hindu as if it is an ethnicity or a nationality and not a religion. So Muslims should be Hindu and Muslims. Like saying that I'm an Egyptian Muslim or I'm an Egyptian Christian. So one could say I'm a Hindu Muslim or I'm a Hindu Christian or I'm a Hindu atheist. This is how he is thinking. He is operating with an irreligious concept of Hinduism. And I think all religious Hindus will and should reject this nationalist supremacy. He's just replacing the concept of India, the concept of Hindustan, the concept of Bharat, and calling it Hindu. And he says that Muslims should acknowledge this, and if they do, then they are he's hinting that then they are welcome to be here otherwise, and he has not told us what happens if Muslims were to reject this idea. By the way, perhaps someone should tell him that if we rename India as Hindustan, this problem that he sees will go away. Now let's look at the other three concepts. He talks about jihad. Of course, he understands that there is a different concept of the greater jihad, which is internal, about self-purification, about becoming a better person. And he also seems to be aware that there are those Muslims who define jihad in a militaristic terms. Fine. But he has to understand that Indian Muslims are not committing jihad or committing violence anywhere in the name of Islam. Whatever terrorism that India has experienced has come from outside India. And that's a national security issue. It is up to the defense and the foreign ministry to handle. But for domestic politics, I would really love to know where is this jihad that he's talking about. Muslims, especially Indian Muslims, are remarkable for the absence of radicalization in the past few decades, where we have seen radicalization in Pakistan, in Saudi Arabia, in other Arab countries, even in Central Asia. But there hasn't been any radicalization of Indian Muslims in India, and partly because India is or was a democratic and pluralistic country. He seems to have a beef with the concept of ummah. He said Muslims should give up the idea of ummah. He doesn't seem to understand what the concept of ummah means. Ummah is just an Arabic word for nationality. And the theological term ummah does not just mean Muslims. For example, if you look at the constitution of Medina, in which Prophet Muhammad basically described the ummah to include Muslims as well as Jews. So the ummah can be a multi-ethnic, multi-religious concept. Yes, Muslims do use the word ummah to imply a global Muslim community, but the past few years in India alone, the way the Hindu nationalist movement has oppressed Indian Muslims, lynching them, bulldozing their homes, banning hijab, taking away mosques like Babri Mosque, bulldozing it, destroying it, and building temple on it. All of this has been going on since 1992. Where is the ummah? There is no ummah. It's an imaginary concept. It seems to have no salience at all and no political clout. I don't know why he's afraid of it. Look at what's happening to Uyghurs in China. What is the Ummah doing? The Ummah is busy taking photographs with the foreign minister of China. That's what the Ummah is doing. Why is he afraid of the Ummah? And by the way, look at the Indian diaspora. Indians, people from India who are now citizens of the US, who are now citizens of European countries, do have strong cultural and historical ties to India. We call it the Indian diaspora, the biggest diaspora in the world. That is nothing but the Indian Ummah. He has to understand that. I mean, he's dealing with superficial level of understanding of Islamic concepts, or broadly speaking, of concepts themselves. If you disagree with me, you're welcome to come on to Khanversations and explain to us what's the difference between the idea of the Indian diaspora and the Muslim Ummah. And finally, the word kafir. He seems to have a problem with the word kafir. The word kafir, even though it is loosely translated as unbeliever, it really means someone who's denied the truth. Somebody like him. He keeps insisting that Islam came to India via invaders, when everybody knows that Islam came to India long before Muhammad Ghazni and Ghauri and others came. Islam came to India through traders. There was a mosque in Kerala in the 7th century. You can see the photograph of that mosque. So when he denies the truth that Islam came peacefully and Islam spread in India, mostly in the 18th century, through Sufi movements, then he becomes a kafir because he's denying the truth. So in order to become an unbeliever, you have to know that the message of Islam is true, and then you deny it. Then you become a kafir. And if you don't believe in the message of Islam, then you're not a kafir to begin with. And any religion that has an identity has an inside and an outside. And they all have those terms: Greeks and barbarians, Americans and non-Americans, Europeans and the rest of the world, Indians and non-Indians. These are all inside and outside groups. Similarly, you have Muslims and those who don't believe in Islam. What's the big deal? If he's saying, if that is his way, denying the term kafir is his way of demanding that Muslims become religiously pluralistic, which means that they accept that all religions lead to God, then truly, philosophically speaking, nobody is a kafir because everybody is pursuing the truth. And that's a very interesting conversation, and we need to have that conversation. Indian Muslims themselves demand that India become secular, democratic, and pluralistic. And if that third claim of theirs is hypocritical, then let's talk about it. Let's ask this question: are Muslims pluralistic when it comes to religion? And that would be an interesting dialogue. So what have we learned from these messages? I have a feeling that the extremism in India has reached such a zenith at the moment. On every day there seems to be a religious assault on minorities. The hijab is banned, people are lynched, mosques are discovering religious idols in them, and so on and so forth. On a daily basis, somebody or the other is launching a cultural attack on Muslims of India. This country is falling apart. There is no law and order in India. And I think that the RSS is frightened of the Frankenstein that they have created. And I think they are trying to rein it in. I hope that is a correct reading, that RSS now has a buyer's remorse. Hopefully this is true. And I hope that RSS does succeed in restraining the radicalized Hindus from going further crazy in India. But I also suspect that it's too late. It is quite possible that if Mohan Bhagwat and the RSS try to restrain the Hindu nationalist fervor, they will feel the anger of this movement just as everybody else is. So two things. Number one, Please subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so, and please share it with others. And secondly, if you wish to continue with this dialogue, you are welcome, Mr. Ram Madhav, Mr. Mohan Bhagwat on Khanversations. We can talk about the meaning of the word kafir, we can talk about jihad, we can talk about ummah, we can talk about Hindustan, we can talk about Bharat, we can talk about India. Thank you for listening. And until next time, be safe, be thoughtful. This is Muqtedar Khan.